Welcome to class. As we begin this morning, I want to turn our minds and attention back for a moment to that element of fire. As I've been considering this all this week, my explorations have included really looking at what my passions are and the things that I do to help fuel those passions, and the things that I do also to kind of squelch them. There's a fine balance, I find, of keeping myself engaged and active and energized for all the things that I want to do, and being overwhelmed by having too much on my plate. In our physical practice, what I would like to do is to do a couple of things. One, to explore kind of the solar energy of the body. And I think of that as being in, and you can't see me here, but in this area, the solar plexus area around the third chakra. So that energy center is said to be of the element of fire. It's also the center that's often called the power center. It's the action center. It's the place from which we can move and create things in our along our path. It's also an area that we can tend to really overemphasize. Even as I look at people just in general out in the world, there's a lot of standing that happens where there's what looks like. So if you kind of open your eyes and soften the edges and look at people, you can sometimes see that how the energy moves. And this is a place where people push themselves from. If you've been in classes with me much or over time, I've talked a lot about the kidneys. And just go ahead right now and take your hands back and kind of give a little massage. I'm using the backs of my hands because I'm not super warmed up yet. You can use the backs of your hands, and it's that space right under the back ribs. So the kidneys and the adrenal glands rest right there. And they are often, it's an organ and a gland in the body that are often found to be deficient. Like if you see a Chinese medicine practitioner, because that energy is like all used up. So in our yoga practice, as we go through, we're going to explore really giving space to the kidneys and the adrenals as a way to help to vitalize what's happening in the body, and to kind of sustain and keep balanced the energetic of our being as we move through these physical asana. We're going to play a little with some sun salutations because I've always enjoyed them. I think a lot of you have too. And also because in doing a flow like that, we have a couple of benefits. One, the flow is pretty known. So it's not like a vinyasa that I'm taking you through into a surprise, like the next move. And especially after we do one, and then we'll do all of them that we do in the same way. So there's a consistency there. There's also a demand as you move from pose to pose, as you transition from one to the other. It's a beautiful place to kind of explore and play with your own fire. Like, how much demand do you put on yourself? How much do you let yourself just kind of hang back? Is there a way to find this element of consistency that a vinyasa, a flow like that, can give us? And we're also going to include, as we do that practice and some of the others, Ujjayi, the victorious breath. It's the one pranayama that is most often combined with the physical movement practice. And for a couple of reasons. One, you can do it while you move. And two, it can heighten your attention to the breath and to the energy flow as you're going through the motions of your practice. When the breath becomes too, or when the effort, I should say it like this, when the effort in what you're doing becomes too much, when you're pushing too hard, burning too strongly, kind of flaring out or flaming up, the breath becomes disturbed, becomes, there's like too much rigor in the breath. It can become labored or effortful. And so the breath gives you this immediate cue, like place to bring your attention so that you know, oh, this is too much. And so then you play with, how do I tame that without just putting the fire out? It doesn't mean, oh, I have to like stop, or it doesn't mean you have to stop, right? You can explore how to tame without squelching. If the effort's not strong enough, then what happens is that the breath becomes shallow and not as full of life force. So even when you're working very slowly, or even doing restorative poses during parts of restorative kind of practice, a focus on the breath and like maintaining a consistency, a depth, and a length to the breath helps to keep that fire burning, that internal warming to happen. But when you go to sleep, that gets diminished. And both when you like physically go to sleep, but also if you go to sleep in your mind as you practice, you start to become less focused or attentive. Natural breath is great, I think, during practice. And I actually don't really advocate for every breath being an ujjayi breath for all kinds of reasons. And at the same time, if you notice that you're starting to get more distracted or kind of less connected or less focused, then that ujjayi breath, bringing it in, can be so helpful. All right, so make your seat very comfortable, and ideally with either sitting up in a chair or sitting cross-legged or in virasana. I'll let you choose this morning, so that you have a sense of really being connected into the ground of your body. Let your spine then flow up with a watery kind of flow. Remember, water has power. It's very energized, but it doesn't have like that density if you're holding yourself up. You can let yourself relax. Bring your hands onto your front ribs for a moment and close your eyes. And start out with a natural breath and perhaps a gentle encouragement towards lengthening as you bring your attention to the inhale and the exhale. And we've all done belly breathing, where we feel the belly moving with the breath. But feel here too the quality of movement right at that solar plexus. Like a very gentle bellows, you let the breath help both breathe life into your fire, but also as you breathe and as you presence the breath here, being intent about being in that just right place. Not too much so that you feel like you stress or flare. Not too little where the fire feels like it's starting to go out. And then slide your ribs, your hands, to the outsides of your ribs. This, of course, helps start to open the shoulders and the chest. You might feel a little stretch there. But feel too the movement in the sides of the ribs. Moving out to the sides as you inhale, gently drawing in a bit as you exhale. And feel too on the inhale as the breath fills the lungs completely. The chest will rise a bit. And when your chest rises, the rib cage also lifts slightly up. You don't feel that naturally happening, you can play with it. So on the inhale, ribs expanding to the sides and lifting slightly up. And then with the exhale, like this small movement in a piston, they lower a bit and hug in. And then bring your hands onto your back. And I'm going to suggest having the back of the hands on the kidney area, right at the back ribs, with your fingers pointing towards each other. And again, exploring this movement in the rib cage and the inhalation and the exhalation. And you may feel that when you inhale, the ribs flare slightly back. And when you exhale, they push a little in. That's tricky words and language, right? Because I said flare, and I'm going to say that when your ribs push in, the kidneys and the adrenals push in, there is like this push on the fire element too. When the ribs go up and back, there's more like space for that fire. If you can imagine building a fire, you always want some air to get in and underneath. And so that air can get in and underneath. Now bring your hands onto your lap. Let your shoulders relax. And knowing this and bringing this now exploration in, begin to breathe with that ujjayi sound. There's a light contraction in the throat, the glottis slightly closing between the vocal folds, as if you were going to whisper. And a little pressure or a little resistance for the air to move against, which creates that sound, ujjayi. Let the sound be focused more to the center back of your throat. So that you're breathing in and out through your nostrils, the focal point of your breath is right there in the throat, where you can hear the sound as if in the backs of your ears. Make the sound a level and a consistency that's like the little crackle of a fire, where you have to get quiet to actually hear it. But when you get quiet and listen like that, it's very present. And notice in the way that you're sitting, and as you bring a little more strength into each successive breath, not necessarily making it louder or harsher in any way, but more the power of your intent and focus is there. Be also physically aware of the ribs and that they're lifting a little in the back, lifting up away from the pelvis and widening out in all directions when you breathe in. And then settling, a quieting without collapse, and still yet softening every time you breathe out. Be here for about 3 more full breaths with that ujjayi sound. And then you can let the sound kind of not go away completely, just fade a little bit. So the breath still is as present and expansive and attention drawing. And yet there's a softness because you can relax your throat, fully relax the shoulders, and bring your hands together in front of your chest. And my intention for this class is that we explore balancing the fire to alight our passions and give them air, while at the same time holding ourselves in a space of consistency and ease. You can see if any of that resonates with intentions you have. Perhaps for you, with this fire element and what you know about yourself, there's another thread that comes in. Take a moment, let that come into your mind. And then we'll do that little bow of head to heart, setting the intention, presencing it for a moment. And then you can release the hands down, lift and open your eyes. And please come up to standing. And come on to your feet. And you're going to start with a little gentle warming, shifting slightly side to side. We'll explore air more fully in another practice. And it's really hard to ultimately separate all the elements out, right? Because fire needs air to burn. Allow yourself to sway as if moving on currents. Take another few moments there. And then start to add a little bit more movement and flow with your arms. Ground your feet on every step so you're very present in the entirety of your body. If fire gets too hot, it actually can be helpful to put some water on it. If it's starting to go out, it needs a little air. And in our practice, now you can take your arms all the way up and over. Let's do that a few times. In our practice, we can be aware of, like, when is there too much of any element? Let's do one more of those. Good. And then do a couple of big shoulder rolls. Lift your elbows, stretch them to the sides a bit as you go. Bring back that ujjayi sound a little stronger. Like I said, you don't have to do every single breath ujjayi. You can let it come in as you need a little bit more fuel and fade out when you need to soften and release. Shake your arms out at your sides. And then bring your hands onto your front ribs. We're going to just do a little rubbing. You'll feel the palms of your hands perhaps heating up just a little bit. You'll feel the front of your body here gently heating. Warmth is good. Warmth is good. And it also, a balanced warmth helps to create calm and soothing as much as it does sparks and joy. You can put your hands on your sides and rub up and down a little bit. I think the image for me of a piston is actually really helpful in the rib cage. Like it kind of moves up and down. And then bend your knees, lean forward a little, and take your fist and do a little more vigorous massage on the kidneys. The position of the body actually helps to flare the ribs, and even taking your hands back like that flares the back ribs. And think about giving your kidneys and your adrenals energy. Like you're really acknowledging how hard they work, and you're willing to interact with them in a way that you're going to give them some energy, give them some support. And then bend your knees deep, take the hands down and go. Inhale, arms up, and then exhale, release the arms. You can let them swing, and then take them back. Inhale. We're going to start building a little fire in the legs, and a little inner heat. Inhale. We're going to do 3 more of those. Just swinging my arms until it feels right. And then inhale. All right. And then take your elbows onto your thighs. Take your feet a little wider. You can clasp your hands or you can put them in a prayer position. And then start to shift your weight side to side. Let your hips move side to side. Feel the movement side to side of your ribs. And you can even widen out the ribs. I'm coming into a little C shape. And then the other way and widening the ribs. So bringing the spine, the torso into a little C shape. I'm going to do that one more time to each side. And then stand up. All right, now stand in mountain pose. Grounded feet, legs strong, pelvis balanced over the roots. And inhale, take your arms up, coming into Urdhva Hastasana. You're going to take a little stretch into one side, opening up the side body. Stretch the other side, opening up the side body. Feel here as you stretch side to side. You get this length of the what I call the side body. But start to bring more subtle awareness. When you reach, do your ribs push up and forward? Do they lift way up and back so you feel like your heart collapses, or can you reach through your side and keep the whole rib cage rising away from the pelvis? So it's not one part lifts away from the pelvis more than the other. Just play with that. And then you can release the arms down. Inhale, sweep them up again. Now I often give an instruction to lift from the back ribs to the thumbs. Try that. You can even let your fingers tip forward a little bit. And you'll feel that sort of openness, that spaciousness around that whole kidney area. So the question comes in, where's just the right amount, right? And I think just the right amount is where you feel a softening across the front, but it's not pushing down. I can release the arms. I'm aware, because people tell me all the time, that there's an instruction that happens in yoga of to don't flare your front ribs and pull them down towards your pelvis. And I would like to get my big yoga teacher eraser out. This is my pencil with a big eraser on it, and I'm erasing that instruction. All right, because when you pull the front ribs down, and just do it for a moment, put your fingers on your front ribs and pull them down. To me, that feels like that's squelching the fire. It's like, no, don't be yourself. No, don't do that, right? But when you instead lift your back ribs and let the whole rib cage rise up as if it's a little piston, then there's more of an internal yes. Stretch your arms up from there. That internal yes alive. If you feel the back ribs starting to hang, you can reach through your thumbs. If you feel the front ribs starting to lift, you can lift the whole of the rib cage. See if you can find balance. So it's not yes or no, this or that. It's more like all of it gets to be present. Now bring the arms down. Take your feet wide. Turn them over to the right. Let's see, I'll just go that way too. So turn them over. I actually like to go back and forth. And lift your arms. And as you lift the arms, again, you can just be conscious. A lot of people do. They lift the arms and it's like the whole front body gets long. That to me is like that fiery flare, which can be really sweet for a while, but it gets exhausting. So lower your arms. See if you can lift them with more balance. Front is wide open because you matter. The back is wide open because you matter. Bend the knee, warrior two. You can turn your head, look out over that front hand. Let there be a little movement in your pose. I like to actually, especially at first, pulse up and down a little bit. It's again like that gentle bellows, fueling my passion for yoga practice, for being here in this amazing body that I own, or at least that has let me inhabit it for a while. And then come up, release the arms. We'll turn over to the other side. Same thing, simple warrior two pose, lifting the arms. And again, just bringing that consciousness. When you lift, is it like a over exuberance? And it's not to diminish your exuberance, but to balance your energy. You lift with more consciousness. Bend the knee. Come in to presence. This pose, which very likely is like one of the very first yoga poses you might have done. And still, there's so much here. Now let's come up. Release the arms, turn, and step in. I want to invite you to get your blocks if you like to use them for side angle pose and triangle pose. I'll just take them, put them at the back edge of the mat, and step wide again. Turn your feet over to the right. We're going to do a little flow here. And again, for that consistency factor, I'll tell you, we're going to do warrior two, flow to side angle pose, Parshva Konasana, and then straighten the front leg and come into Trikonasana, triangle pose. You start at center. And even here, as you lift your heart up towards your hands, yeah, there is that, burgeoning desire that you want to honor, respect, be present with. But to keep the fire burning from the ground all the way up, to keep that energy flowing, no one center can be overemphasized. Just feel it. If you really lift your heart, overdo it for a moment. So do you feel that little squeeze on your kidneys? And you might also feel like you kind of pull out of your feet a little. Go back into your feet. And when you lift your heart, lift more, like the whole rib cage up. So it feels like there's a widening out, not just a thrusting. Lift the arms. With the exhalation, warrior two. Turn and look over the front hand a moment. And then turn your head back to center, to face forward. Lift through the back ribs slightly as you cascade over and come into side angle. You can, of course, have forearm on your thigh, hand on the block, hand on the floor, up to you. Stretch the top arm over, reaching it right out past your ear. Now lengthen out through your thumb and then turn into the pose more fully, even turning your head up from the interior of your body. Float that top hand up, reach fingertips towards the sky, and then straighten your leg, coming into Trikonasana. Change the height of your block if you need it, so you can really lengthen through that leg. But then feel again, do you have any sense of tension or pressure around those back ribs? Sometimes the bottom side of these poses will shorten. Can you move the ribs front and back away from the pelvis slightly? And then when you come up with balance. Release the arms. Center and turn the feet. And lift the arms. Warrior two. And on this side, in whatever way you can connect with the imagery that I've been using around fire, see what's happening in your body. Can you feel in your own experience how this might actually help you with an exploration around passion and desire and doing what you want to do in a balanced, creative, consistent way? Lengthen out. Come into side angle pose. And as you take the arm over, just stretch a little more towards your thumb so you feel that openness across the back. Again, the bottom side of the pose can get a little short. Instead of just trying to stretch out, and in fact,
what I see a lot when people try to lengthen the bottom is they push with that bottom kidney. Can you instead lift the whole rib cage towards your knee and then float the arm up, straighten the leg. A little Ujjayi breath is beautiful to stay centered and steady. Remember, too much rigor, the breath will get labored. Not enough effort, it will get shallow. And the life force starts to get a little less potent. Now rooting down, float up. Release the arms, turn, and step in. Have the feet so they're hip distance apart. Take your hands on your hips. And then fold forward to Uttanasana. For a moment, let your head go. Lengthen both sides of the neck. And then bend your knees so your torso rests against your thighs. Bring your hands up and do again a little gentle massage on your kidneys. You can go all the way from the ribs to the pelvis, that whole area, opening it up, waking it up, giving it support. And then release the arms. Straighten the legs as much as they straighten for you in this position. Release your head. And then bend the knees again. Float your arms out to the sides and come up with your spine long, but your kidneys buoyant, like the little balloons rising up underneath those ribs. Take the arms all the way overhead. Even look up. Come into a slight back bend. See if even as you are going back, you can have a sense of space in that whole back waist area. No matter how far you go. And then come back to center. Release the arms down. Take the feet wide again. Hands on the hips. Root down through the feet, and without locking your knees, move the tops of your thighs back a little. Ankles slightly forward. We're going to come in a moment to Prasarita-Padottanasana. And for this pose, very helpful to keep the spine long, keep the heart lifted. I often think of like sending the heart out and over so that you don't round the back too soon. But you can overdo that too. Right, even here, lifting the sitting bones, stretching forward. Do it just from this position. And you might feel that little push right on your kidneys. See if you can let them be a little more buoyant, give them a little more space. And go forward as if your whole rib cage is being offered out into the forward bend. And then drop your head. Come up on your fingertips. So coming out of the pose, the same. You don't want to just crank your chest up. See if you can find that sense of space under the back ribs. And move your rib cage forward towards the crown of your head. Now moving your legs. And then float up. Join the hands. Release them down. And step the feet in. Now you can take your blocks to the top of your mat. And hand facing them. make sense, this image that I'm having, and that you can feel it. And if you can see me here, it's like the difference between this position and this position, where I feel like there's this lift, but it's like that internal energy is like filling my body, not being thrown out. And then when you take the arms up, you keep that. And we're gonna come down into Uttanasana from there. From here, now walk your feet back to downward facing dog pose. And I'm just gonna come to my screen and watch for a moment. I can see what's happening in the room of those who are present. Know that if you're watching this on recording, I'm also holding space for your presence as well. All right, in downward dog, take a moment and pedal your feet a little bit. Lengthen out the backs of your legs. And as you're coming into the pose and exploring and sort of feeling your way here, just have that one part of your consciousness on what happens to your ribs. Do your ribs kind of push in and out? Do they flare up? Do they collapse in? Have a sense for yourself of that. And then take your right leg up behind, lift it. And there, notice when you do that, does your rib cage drop towards the floor? Do it a couple of times, put your foot down, and then you could play, you could take it up fast and just see kind of what the natural reaction is. You could put it down, you could take it up slow and see if you can keep a little more space. And then try taking it fast and keeping space. So being balanced doesn't mean everything has to be slow and you're like never going to have any fun. You can be exuberant and excited. Do the other leg if you haven't already been switching back and forth. Just do that a few times. Lift, explore, feel it in your own body. And then when next time you bring your foot down, drop your knees to the floor and sit back in child's pose. You can drop your elbows onto the ground. I often teach it like this, more of a extended child's or arms forward. It keeps a little bit more space in the chest and in the heart area, a little less compressive feeling down. But if you feel comfortable, like your head easily reaches onto the floor and you don't feel too compressed in the pose, slide your arms around in a big arc and bring your hands one more time up onto your kidneys. Great shoulder opener. And you can use the backs of your hands. It'll be a little bit less of a pull on the shoulders that way. Your knuckles on the backs of your hands, and just give a gentle little massage there. If you like making fists and going a little stronger into your lower back, actually can sometimes feel nice. Take another couple of breaths there. And then drop the hands to the floor, bring them underneath your shoulders, and push up to sit on your heels. You can bring your knees in, sit back in a Virasana. Close your eyes. And come back for a moment to a full presencing Ujjayi breath. And outside of moving through the postures, feel the little piston action of your rib cage. Where on the inhales, the whole side body gets longer, more spacious. The space between the ribs and the pelvis
elongates. The back ribs are light and buoyant, and the front ribs soft and easy. No pulling down or diminishing required. Lots of energy inside, and a fire that burns at a level of heat and intent and potency that can move you. Now come onto your hands and knees. And take one leg back into plank pose. And then the other leg back as well, toes tucked under, come into a full plank. And in plank, you can have a little vibrancy, a little buoyancy to your hips. And that same quality of vitality under the back ribs. And the same kind of ebullience right up under the base of your skull. So nothing is hanging down. Plank pose, of course, a great strength builder. Use that ujjayi breath to stay steady with the possibility, the potential of garnering your strength, of building it up. And then with an exhalation, lower yourself slowly down. You can put the knees on the floor completely fine. So you really control the level of intensity and consistency. Have your hands still under your shoulders. Root the tops of your feet into the floor, the knees as well, so your legs are grounded. And then from the depths of your belly, start to curl up and come into cobra pose. Let's make this a bent elbow cobra. Yeah, very nice. And then bring attention right into your back and let your back ribs float up a little. You could imagine, you're not just pulling the ribs up, you're letting those kidneys have space. You want them to be able to move around a little bit. Take another breath there. And then exhale, lower down to the floor. Now tuck your toes under, and when you come up to plank, you can come to a knee down plank or all the way to plank. Lift from your back. It's like your back is going to float you up off the ground. Of course, your arms and your core have to work to move to downward dog pose. And then with that same consciousness, bring your right leg up and back. Now, even when you swing it forward, and it takes some effort, right? You have to to get your foot up there. See if you can stay present in this quality of balance. Step the foot between your hands. Keeping your chest close to your knee, reach your arms forward. Stretch a little through your thumbs, wide back body, and then float up to an upright lunge. A breath there, reaching up, and then on the exhale, float all the way back down. Keep your arms lifted as your chest comes close to your knee, and then release the arms. Step back, downward dog pose. Take the left leg up, the other leg, and step it forward between your hands. So again, this little play, keep your chest as close to your knee as you can. Lift your arms. That does take a little effort to lift the inner sides of the arms, to frame your ears with your arms without rising your chest. And then lengthen up, upright lunge. Reach a little through your thumbs so you feel that sort of piston action, the whole torso long and bright, filled with an inner light. Exhale, keep the arms lifted, but lower your chest to your knee. And then take the hands to the floor on purpose. Step forward, right foot up. And taking the arms wide, come with a long spine all the way back to standing. Bring your hands together at your heart. Now, Surya Namaskar. Surya is the sun. Imagine like the light of the sun, a warm sun that feels comfortable for you, like just the right amount of heat for you, shining on your body. Stand near the top of your mat, please. We're going to do sun salutation. Surya, the sun. And namaskar, salutation, to salute, to pay homage to be present with. And let that image that you have of that sun now go into your body and feel in your own solar plexus area this radiant energy that is your passion, your ability to move in the world, your enthusiasm, excitement. And remember your intention to let that burn bright, and yet to give it enough fuel to keep burning over time. And with that, take your arms down and then all the way up and overhead and flow into Uttanasana, bowing. Sun salutation is beautiful because it has these brilliant opening movements and bowing movements. And that is the namaskar, to open and to bow, to open and to bow, to release and to replenish. Lift up on your fingertips, lengthen the heart out, and then step back, downward dog pose. Reach back with your legs, fuel the groundedness of your pose. And then take your right leg up. Swing it forward, step between your hands. This time, pivot your back heel to the floor and then come up into warrior one. Use Ujjayi breath. If you can, throughout this whole process and flow, if you need to take breaks, do that too. On an exhale, touch your hands down to the ground, step to downward facing dog pose. Come forward to plank. And exhale all the way down to your belly. On the inhale, sweep up into cobra, and your choice, elbows bent, elbows straight, but full in the back. So you're not collapsing around those ribs. Exhale down, and then push back up to plank and to downward facing dog. Adho Mukha Svanasana. Take your left leg up. Swing it forward, step between your hands and pivot the back heel, and then rising, come into Virabhadrasana 1. With an exhaled breath, touch down and step forward, Uttanasana. Inhale all the way to standing. Light of the sun, like you're raising into the light of the sun, your own bright light too. And then this calming, hands to heart, hands to center. The calming, never a putting of the fire out, but rather a bowing to what that inner fire wants. Inhale, take the arms up. On the exhale, Uttanasana. Lift up on your fingertips, find length through the torso. Step back, downward facing dog. Take your left leg up and step forward between your hands. Still that ujjayi sound, supporting your constancy. Take the arms up, come upright. A breath there, and then an exhale to touch back down onto the earth. Step back. Plank pose. Full and inspired, bright and brilliant, even as you lower down. And then let that sort of urge to create come out, even in your cobra pose. Lift up. Release down, and then push up, back to plank, and back to Adho Mukha Svanasana. Take the right leg up and step forward. Enjoying the heat and using the breath to help to continue to move energy and at the same time calm and soothe. Both can happen together. Arms up, come upright. Exhale, bow, touch the earth. Step back. Oh, that was our second side, wasn't it? I did it wrong. Step your right foot forward again, and then step the left foot up. That's where I intended to go. Good. It helps me to actually watch because then I see when things mess up. Inhale, arms up. And relax back in again, hands to heart. Now one on your own. I'm going to be silent and just appreciate the movement I can see on my screen. You can be silent, but appreciate that whispery sound of your breath. And as you come back at the end of that one round, just pause, hands at heart, present in your body, close your eyes. our pacing is all a little different. That there's benefit both in going your own pace, unhurried and at ease, and of simply being in more kind of waiting mode. If you can wait without so much anticipation about what's next, and instead more presence, more being here right now, as you are, as it is, as we are together. And then release your arms down to your sides, open your eyes, and shift your weight over into one foot and hold the other foot behind. And come into a little thigh stretch here. You can take the opposite hand on your hip. Take the knee back so that it's slightly behind. So the bent knee, take it slightly behind the straight leg. Not so much that it makes you lean forward. So you're actually getting your sort of deep core muscles in your quadriceps to lengthen out. And lift up through the center of your heart. But again, do it with that sort of whole piston lift of the rib cage. And then see if you can take the leg back a little further. Now step that down. Shift over to the other side. You take a hold of your foot. Enjoy the thigh stretch. For many of us, the knee will be a little forward. See if you can take it back. And you might feel that to take it back, you have to either lean forward or your ribs will kind of push forward. Pause for a moment and see if you can get that whole lift, rib cage, front and back, sides too, away from the pelvis. And then take the knee back a little more. And then step down. Now bring your feet close in together. Bend your knees, sitting back through your sitting bones. Shift your weight into your right foot and bring the left leg up and over to eagle pose. You can draw the pinky toe side of your left foot in towards the right calf. Keep sitting down deep into your pose. Bring your hands on your rib cage. We're going to do kind of a funny eagle here. With the thumbs back around on your ribs, gently lift those back ribs. And then sit a little deeper. And lift those back ribs and sit a little deeper. And then flow the arms out to the sides, bring them into the full eagle bind. And then take the arms wide and release. Bend the knees deep, sit back. Bring the other leg up and over. Bring your hands again, so I'm gonna flap your wings a little. This is like chicken eagle, chicken wings. But leave your back thumbs kind of lift. So you have that lift in the back ribs. And when you do your eagle arms, that's more natural. I want you to see if you can keep the lift like through the whole rib cage as you bring the arms in. So you're not, again, collapsing in the ribs and just widening your upper back. The whole back body is broad. Then arms wide and release. From here now, we're going to come to stand on the right foot and hold the left foot behind. Do the same thing we did before, that little movement of the knee back. If you bend your elbow slightly, that might kind of coax your ribs back as well, and you can lengthen. Stretch your right arm up, and then come into dancer's pose. And as you take that leg up and back,
Just notice any little pressure across your lower back. And it's not that you have to like push your ribs back, but see if you can create space. So your back bend has space in it. And then release the foot, bring it forward, and come into eagle pose. And then go one more time into dancer pose from there. Step down when you're ready. I lost my balance a little. And pause. All right. And then I want to see what's going on in the live room. Shift your weight into the other foot. I think it's the left one now. And bring your right foot up, holding it. Explore dancer pose. So dancers, it's like this beautiful expression, right? Grace and ebullience out. Keep it bright even in the back. And then use that brightness to help you transition. Release the foot and come into eagle pose. And what happens in the eagle? There's this kind of drawing in, a little waiting moment, and then you can take the arms out to the side, come up, see if you can clasp your foot again and flow right back into dancer pose. And my feeling as I do this, and you can release when you're ready, my feeling is that there's this interplay always between being out there and being in here, and being out there and being in here. And those two get closer and closer and closer together. Come down into child's pose. You can have your arms forward at first, let your forehead touch down onto the ground, and your hips settle back into your heels. You let your arms relax, your neck relax. And if it felt good to you to let your shoulders drop forward a little and bring your hands back, you could one more time just give that gentle little massage on your kidneys. And then from there, bring your hands by your knees under your shoulders and sit up. You can get your bolster, if you have one, or a folded blanket. Where's my blanket? So you can have your blanket folded in this position, and it would go down. All right, and we're going to come into a supported relaxation pose. So you can have the bolster slightly away from your hips, not too far. It's like a quarter to a half an inch, and then lie back. And you could even take your rib cage and just kind of wiggle it out so your pelvis rests down on the floor, but there's still this feeling of length through the torso. You can stretch the legs out, open the arms out to the sides a bit, release the head, release the weight of your body, feel the spine and the center drop back into the support of the bolster. And with this little bit of back bend, you may feel you can sort of tap in and really feel it more fully as you breathe let your back ribs open into the bolster. So though it's a back bend and a shoulder opener, a chest opener, all those, you feel a quietening around the heart as you breathe in and out. In order to have your back ribs flare a little towards the bolster, you may feel like you have to bring a strengthening quality to the breath. Even here, though you're not moving and being active, be balanced in that approach. So it's not overly rigorous. And again, you're exploring this possibility of being strong, calm, and peaceful. Like a 70-degree day. You'll feel so warm in winter and cool in summer. Find this perfect balance for you. Now, if this is super comfortable for you, you can stay another couple minutes. If you feel like it'd be nice to take the back bend out of your back, come up just only as much as you need to, move the bolster and lie down flat on the floor. And at this point, if you still have any ujjayi sound happening or you're real focused on the breath, let it go. Because rest, deep rest, is necessary too. Simply allow yourself to relax a moment. And now, as we begin to transition back to activity, bring more attention to the breath without the ujjayi sound. Just feeling the inhale and the exhale. And then take a few breaths or be present with a few breaths that feel like ujjayi but are completely silent. Sustaining that, bend the knees. Roll to the side. Come up slowly, come to sitting. Take just another moment here. Few breath cycles of what I call silent ujjayi. Then bring your hands together at your heart. May you walk on the earth today and every day in balance with you. Namaste. Enjoy the day. For those who are here live, as always, I'm happy to hear any reflections or questions you'd like to share. And if you need to go, go with peace, be well. And I'll leave the recording going. Anyone who's interested in connecting in this way.
I need to get going, so I will head out, Leslie. But thank you for a wonderful practice, as always.
Good care.
Bye, everybody.
If you want to say anything, you're welcome to just unmute and check in. Nice to have you here, April.
Thank you, Leslie. I just want to say, wow. Wow. I don't really have words right now.
Yeah. Glenn or Casey, did either of you want to share anything?
I feel like I do, but I'm also feeling a little wordless too. Yeah.
Right. Maybe. Was it Casey? Did you decide you had some words?
I'm gonna process for a second.
Yeah. I didn't want to. Yeah.
Go forth.
No, I'll wait. I don't want to interfere with your.
Don't wait.
Maybe you're in an incubation period. Just two things well, there are many things that were percolating for me, but one was an early cue, a simple cue of when we were side bending, and the notion of not sort of putting a kink in the rib cage, not making one side of the rib cage be depressed or elevated over the other side. And I kind of know that, but I haven't really been paying attention to that. And I found it very helpful to imagine the sort of steady up and down of the rib cage instead of, I think I was squashing it a little bit and bending to the side. And I try to remember that in the poses like triangle and side angle, and the imagery of just the piston in the rib cage was just helpful in that regard. I appreciated that, particularly again when I have a tendency to bend the rib, and more than the front, like down dog kind of poses. Anyway, that was one thing, and then the other thing is something that appeared to me to be a simultaneous action while I was extending my rib cage away from my pelvis, not trying to push it down. And I like that feeling, but I was also trying to bring the tips of my shoulder blades together and move the tips in a way down toward my tailbone. So the scapula were kind of going down a little and the rib cage was kind of coming up. You didn't focus on that particular thing, and I'm not even sure that, maybe that doesn't make sense, but that's what I was sort of experimenting with too. And it was interesting to me.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, it does make sense to me actually, because there's a, I'm careful about not really saying pull the tips of the scapula down towards the pelvis, because sometimes when people do that, they depress the shoulder girdle
uh-huh,
and do create like this tension in the back,
uh-huh.
like a compression in the back. But I do find it's helpful to engage those muscles around the shoulder blades and in the upper back. And I can see how the image of drawing them down is helpful, especially if we carry a lot of tension up here in the traps and all of that, which so many people do. But that simultaneous lift of the ribs would sort of mitigate the issue of pulling them down, right? Because you can't lift your ribs and depress the shoulder girdle, which is
Yeah.
part of my like secret intention. Like to have the shoulder girdles also be really buoyant and supported, because they rest on the rib cage.
Uh-huh.
Right? The only place your shoulder connects to the axial body is at the collarbones here. So when your rib cage lifts, there's just a lot more space in general, not only for your kidneys. Just we can only say so many words
Yeah.
in a class, but
Yeah.
so thanks for bringing that, because I think that's another little thread in, a little way in. Yeah.
I had an insight when we were doing the wide-legged forward fold, and I've been playing a lot with not overdoing my forward pelvic tilt. That's been this aha in recent months. That oh my gosh, I overdo that. My back hurts all the time. It's cranky, and that of course plays into kind of what we're doing today. The not scrunching my kidney area. That was really helpful, like elongating the back body and the front body at once to come forward instead of I'm more performative. I think I tapped into that old performative way that I've always done wide-legged forward fold. Like I overdo the forward pelvic tilt, lots of rib cage, all that. That doesn't feel good.
Right.
I want to remember that doesn't feel good.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting? And I feel like we could like take it into a whole existential conversation about even like all the ways that we're performative in our lives. And yoga has been, in my yoga experience, it's been very much emphasized like that it's not about the performative aspect, and yet so many of the physical instructions energetically inspire that. It's like we're getting this like constant conflicting information. I'm trying to figure out how do we like balance it so that physical gestures actually match this talk. It's like walking your talk kind of thing. It's, there's so many places we could say like, well, I'm not racist, but I have internal racist bias and willing to like look at it, or so
I had never connected that overdoing of that action though with that idea of performance. So that I guess was
beautiful.
Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, and interesting to see for you as you continue to explore like again, these are my words, but like how do the gestures of the body like really ground into your desire, the desire of your mind and your heart, because that's not the Casey I know that's super performative in the way that you present yourself in the world. And yet there's that gesture in your yoga practice that's come through. Thank you so much for putting words to that, Casey. Yeah. All right. So I have 30 seconds for you, April, if you had words that came.
I just wanted to say it was very emotional.
Mm,
I mean,
yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Thank you for letting those words come out. You know, it's so helpful. This is part of why it's so important for us to be in community together, because we're sharing our experiences, and we know that our experiences are never only our own. Even though they're very unique and individual, they're also universal. And so, thank you. All right. I'm gonna take care all.
Thank you.
See you later.